Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Bolts. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Porcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Up now as we've got three wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
See just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Old Bastards Racing League here for the Kimball Cup Series. I am your host, Gareth McAllister, bringing you the action with Team Goon Squad, 1080p, 60 frames per second, if our Australian internet can allow us to do so. Currently watching Michael Watts, you can see just going past the screen there, going to show you the timing tower as well as we get ready to go around the track as he gets his qualifying done and out of the way. And he's actually qualified on pole just now as we were watching, so great job for him as he gets ready to bring it back down into pit road, getting ready for the race to begin. But we are here at Richmond Raceway, which is a 0.75 mile track, 3/4 of a mile, better way to say it. 180 laps in store for you tonight, and our pit speed is going to be around about 40 miles an hour, dropping from around about 141 or so down the front straight, I should say. As this is a D-shaped oval here at Richmond Raceway, very interesting. We've seen a few three-wide attempts. We saw three-wide in the NASCAR Cup Series race just earlier, so it should be quite interesting to see the Kimball Cup Series guys rock and roll it around here at Richmond Raceway in the Old Bastards Racing League here tonight. Got a fuel run of around about 120 to 125 laps as we were watching with Greg Hammond as he was making his way around, trying his hand at it. We'll see Al Turner now as we jump to him as well. Qualifying continues. Only 13 qualified so far, but we do have a grid of about 41 drivers, so it's going to be quite the big grid here tonight. Anyway, as I was saying, 120 to 125 laps per fuel run. We've only got 180 laps, so if all goes green, we should be seeing only one green flag pit stop. Our in-race reporter, pretty much every race, thankfully we have him on board, Dwayne MacArthur, letting us know that it is tight in and loose off here tonight. There is dramatic pace fall off over the course of a run as we were watching Al Turner there trying to go. Look at Troy Baker, he's just finishing up, so we'll rub on Bob Fullenbaum as he locks up the brakes as well. So that's another thing we've been told to look out for here. We could see a couple of cars lock up the brakes as Wayne Hufford now is trying to make his way out and see if he can get something done and put himself on the board pretty high as well. But this track, Richmond Raceway, opened up in 1946. So that's about 77 years ago, and I can tell you that that is a very, very long time. And it is fantastic to see that the track still exists and is still operating under the top tiers of NASCAR every single season. So that is fantastic news, and I very much enjoy it myself. As we watch Wayne Hufford continue to make his way around, I believe he may be entering pit road this time by as he looked a bit low. The drivers have been warned that they must enter pit road earlier than what is recommended by iRacing itself, as we've been told. As we watch Dwayne MacArthur now, we've been told that they have to enter pit lane before turn 3. As you could see, Wayne Hufford did exactly that. As pit entrance is actually about midway point, just about the start of turn 4 through the corner. And that's going to cause some issues. Definitely if some drivers decide all of a sudden to make that hard left turn. So definitely not something we are wanting to see. Avoiding cautions as much as possible, and that is why that is not being attempted, as Clint Rice has made his way through, got himself up into the 8th position, and I believe he's calling it at the end of it, the qualifying time as well. Got Fletcher Hillman Jr. coming into the chat saying, let's go 74. That is the lovely Alan Wanamaker, who has already made his way around. And I believe we're wrapping up qualifying pretty closely. We've only got about a minute left. Seeing if we can find anyone on track at the moment. I'm not sure if we've still got Greg McDaniel making a lap around a couple other drivers as well. Daniel with a very vivid red, white, and blue paint scheme, representing the good old US of A here tonight, as most drivers are, but not so much, not as patriotic, I don't think, as Greg McDaniel right now. All he needs is an eagle on that machine, and that one is looking very good indeed. As we're watching Brian Glass with the Kodak machine, as I believe he's just finished making his run, and he's going to find himself in the 18th position as we have wrapped up qualifying. And let's get ready to, I was almost going to say ready to rumble. That's not entirely accurate, is it? As we get ready to grid up here tonight. So we are going to let you know what is exactly happening as we run through the grid. Tom Ogle starting on pole. Michael Watts is going to start alongside. Great position from Ogle. Didn't see that as we were looking through our qualifying timing sheet, but there he is. He's just beaten ahead of Watts by the barest of margins, as Dan Hill and Boyd Moore are going to be on row 2. Row 3 consisting of Josh Robinson and Greg McDaniel. Row 4, Dwayne MacArthur and Chris Bates. Row 5, Alan Wanamaker and Al Turner. Row 6, Clint Rice and Wayne Hufford cycling it on back. Row 7, Lee Warsdale and Dave Nestor are going to be starting in that row. Row 8, Cameron Chaussee and Brian Lynch. Row 9, Dean Gear and Brian Glass. Row 10, Bruce Pearson and Kenneth Schultz. Ryan McRubbin and Joey Buscemi are starting in the 11th row tonight. Jonathan Green and Greg Hammond are going to be in your 12th row as we keep cycling it on back. Patrick Martindale is going to be starting. Not sure why it keeps on changing cameras on me. I said Greg Martindale, didn't I? Oh boy, I've lost my spot. That's right, Patrick Martindale and Troy Baker are going to be in the 25th and 26th position. James Wadlow, Brian Lindsay, 27th and 28th. Jason Higginbottom and Eric Essery are going to be in the 15th row. Mike Lynch, Eddie Jones, 16th row. John Hastings and Mark Schrader are going to be in the 17th row. The 18th row, Bob Fellenbaum and Victor Lane keep cycling it on back, as we have Kermit Gentry Jr. and Rick Nitz going to be starting in the 37th and 38th spots. And Mark Fish and Michael Lemonchek are starting in the 20th row. So I did believe we had 41 cars. I believe I may have been just a little tad bit mistaken. And it looks like 40 exactly is what we're rolling out with. But either way, either how, we're only missing one car. So definitely one to look forward to, as we have 40 very high horsepower machines on a very tight and tough circuit that promotes a lot of wheel-to-wheel action. 14 degrees in the corners, 8 degrees on the front stretch, and 2 degrees on the back stretch of banking to help these masterful drivers find their skills throughout the corners. And we will see just who can handle the horsepower under the hood, as Watts and Ogle in those fast forwards are going to be starting 1 and 2. Leader has lane choice, and it looks like Ogle has chosen bottom. Well, I believe it's the restart, so he doesn't get a choice for the very first one because it's not a restart, it's the start of the races. Here we go. Tom Ogle and Michael Watts starting things off strong already, as we're going to have to get a different camera angle because that is ridiculous as we're watching behind the actual pit entrance. But Dan Hill is making a nice jump underneath Lloyd Moore there. Josh Robinson is waiting in the wings to see what happens, and Michael Watts continues to fight with Tom Ogle on the high side. I believe the high side may just be the way around here at Richmond Raceway. Certainly seems to work pretty well with the runs off the corner, as Michael Watts is going to take that position away, and the drivers file out into a single file line. So Watts, Ogle, Hill, all fanning out pretty close together as Robinson and Moore go side by side. Robinson's going to take that spot away. Moore and MacArthur. MacArthur tries to get his nose in there. As I said, Dwayne providing us with a lot of info just before the race began during practice. Very thankful to him. As he continues in the 6th position now. We've just had Alan Wanamaker and Chris Bates go side by side for the 9th place position, and it looks like Wanamaker's going to lose a spot to Bates, as well as further up front Ogle's going to make another run at Michael Watts and is able to get that done relatively easily. So Ogle, as we're so used to seeing, up out front and taking this one by, well, I wouldn't say by storm quite as yet, but he's already built up a 3/10 of a gap lead over Michael Watts, which isn't much here at Richmond Raceway. Drivers clicking off laps around about 22.7 seconds, 22.8. Probably closer to the 22.8 mark, as Tom Ogle's just set the fastest lap of the race. And things look pretty steady for the most part. As we're on the back bumper of Dan Hill now. Josh Robinson, you can see just waiting in the wings just behind. And you can also see that he's looking to the inside of Michael Watts. Not quite able to do it though, as Watts just retains that speed out of corner exit. And he's really able to hold it there up on the high side quite well. Dan Hill still trying to fight Michael Watts as much as possible. Watts has figured something out on that high side line though, as he is able to stay ahead pretty decently. We've got single file all throughout the field at the moment. All the way back through the entire field right now, actually. As no one's really making a huge gamble at taking a move quite yet. Further up back in the pack, Dave Nestor was looking very racy in practice. We were watching him quite a bit, and he was looking pretty racy tonight, as Lee Warsdale is finding himself just behind and under fire from Brian Lynch. Tries to take it, but not quite able to do so. Okay, nice. Coming into the live chat as well, saying good evening all, good evening to you too, and good evening to everyone joining us from wherever you're joining us. I hope you have got a nice seat and ready and comfortable with some snacks at your right or left hand, as we just saw a small battle with Michael Watts and Dan Hill, but Dan Hill has taken that spot away. So Watts may be falling off the pace a little bit early, but we have heard that tyre wear is going to play a big factor in tonight's race. So Michael Watts potentially trying to find a way to save as much tyre as possible. As we cycle on back for the 15th position, Kevin Schultz and Dave Nestor going side by side. Schultz is showing the pace at the moment, and he is currently up 5 positions so far, as we're been only racing for about 13 laps right now. So he's been moving absolutely amazingly, and I stand corrected because further back in the field, Mark Fish is actually, we were showing he's up 8 spots. We go to him and he's up 4. So Bob Fellenbaum is now being shown up on spots as our timing tower struggles with all the different cars on track. As that hummingbird machine from Fellenbaum is making his way around pretty well. Finds himself currently in the 29th position, but tracking down Eric Essery just in front, as we're going to pan the camera up to Michael Watts because Josh Robinson is showing him how the inside lane works, and Robinson is going to try and take that spot away and does so. Just to give you an idea of how these guys are running around this track, give a little bit of a bigger view of this very odd, I want to say odd oval. It's a D shape, but it's a continuous curve in the D. It doesn't have any kind of straightaway. So these drivers are always wheeling it around here. As you can see, MacArthur gets right up to the back of Michael Watts now and looks to make a move to the inside of turns 3 and coming out of 4. Will he be able to get it done? No, it looks like Watts is going to have too much of a power advantage on that high side. MacArthur's got a lot of room to dive it in deep, try and make that run possible. As MacArthur, it looks like is going to take that 5th spot away. 4th spot, excuse me. Watt's doing a great job of holding it on the high side though. Very impressed at the moment. Did see him go up slightly higher, maybe about a lane off the inside line from the start. Wonder how that's going to affect his race in the long run. So far on the short run, it has not been favourable. We haven't talked about strategy, whether some drivers decide to come in early, grab a couple of tyres, run some very, very quick lap times, potentially get their laps back, and then increase their lead in front as well. Not sure they're going to be that powerful, but with tyre degradation being as big as it seems to be here at Richmond Raceway, I would almost think that some of these front runners may actually try and do something as crazy as that. As we pan the camera back to 25th position, because Greg Hammond looked like he was under fire from, I think, Eddie Jones, and Eddie's taken that spot. You can see just in front, Brian Lindsay not too far behind. Looks like Dean Gear is going a little bit high, as he's got a nice Fox Sports livery on that car. That is a new paint scheme for him with red rims. That is about as vibrant as you could make it, with those red rims on the side. As Greg Hammond tries to make that pass happen for the 24th spot, they're going to be side by side here. And making that pass possible goes Greg Hammond, and Ryan Lindsay following through as well. So a lot of passing going on here in the mid to rear of the field at the moment. As our timing board's still not very happy with the fact that we're watching these battles back here. Dean Gear has finally got himself back in line after being passed by Lindsay, Hammond and Essery, as Lindsay's also passed Hammond, and so has Essery as he goes round the underneath. I can tell you from my own limited experience of Richmond Raceway, not the easiest racetrack at all to deal with. A very difficult one to wrap your head around. And that wall gets ever closer every single lap. I don't know how it manages to do so, but it certainly seems that way. Give our timing tower a chance to catch up as we take a look at Tom Ogle, who has already amassed a 1.6 second gap over Josh Robinson in the second position right now, as he has taken over that spot from Dan Hill, sitting in third. Ogle just clicking off laps and clicking them off quickly. We know that he and Robinson are teammates. We also know that Robinson is incredibly quick on the long run. I would say Ogle is more of a mid-run length kind of driver, which is certainly not a bad thing, as right now we're probably around about the point where the tyres are going to start showing their wear, and he has amassed that gap in the perfect time to show that. Hand back the camera to Michael Watts, because Lloyd Moore is catching up, and catching up quite quickly, as Dwayne MacArthur is now also past Michael Watts. So Watts, again, a driver trying something slightly different. Looks like he's got a slightly different line to MacArthur, and more just behind, and it doesn't seem to be hurting him so badly. Has dropped from the second spot down to the fifth position. That is not a big loss at the moment, so it would work out in his favor if he knows how to save his tires, and he is one of those drivers that we typically see on the long runs having to find himself quite close to the top of the standings. So we shall see how that one works out for him in the long run, as lap car going high for these leaders now, letting them go underneath. It's going to be the 35 of Rick Nitz that is going to be up there. Being passed by Clint Rice now. Rice, your 8th position driver. Bates making his way through as well. A little bit of a battle going on here though, as Al Turner and Wayne Hufford go side by side. Ford versus Chevy. It is a battle as old as time, as Hufford and Turner go side by side, but Turner's going to take that position away. That low side seeming to be the faster option right now. This driver's showing me I'm not entirely sure what I'm talking about when I say the top line might be a little bit quicker. As Al Turner has definitely made that spot, and we cycle the camera even further back, because it looks like Jonathan Green is right on the back bumper of Cameron Chaussee, and gonna try and make a move heading into 4 here. Chaussee gives tons of room, but that's going to give him a good exit on the high line. Getting a little bit more speed, but not able to get it done and dialed in, as Jonathan Green is going to take that spot away. 16th position spot, that is. So Victor Lane and Greg Hammond going side by side now. Victor Lane, one of those drivers that we always have the pleasure of seeing appear as much as possible on the YouTube side of things when he's not driving, even when he's during his driving. He sometimes likes to pop in and say hi. But doing a pretty good job so far. He's up 9 spots, so definitely not slouching around as he's in the 27th position and making his way through the field. Just taking a look at some of the battles on track, and there is one of them right there on your screen. Lee Warsdale and Cameron Chaussee making the run side by side. Warsdale very, very high up into turns 1 and 2. Gonna lose a spot to Chaussee as well as McRubbin. He's gonna try and get his nose in there. He still stays high, and that is going to also allow Eddie Jones in the 14. Nice to see him back after last week. We would like to send out condolences to anyone affected, and also basically shout out, I guess is what I want to say. And shout out to the people going through a tough time right now in the US. I've heard nothing but absolute chaos on the news in Tornado Alley, as I believe they're calling it. So I hope everyone is doing okay, everyone in the chat watching along, and everyone racing on actual racing surface right now as well. I hope everyone is doing okay, and that is why we're shouting out Eddie Jones, excuse me, because he was helping out his neighbors last time. Did tell us that he was okay, and everyone was okay last week. Hopefully still okay coming into this week. Him appearing on track is definitely a good sign to see. So just ahead of him though, Ryan McRubbin is making moves as he's up 4 spots into the 17th position right now. Chaussee falling back behind Essery again. So those two have changed hands a couple of times. And Essery's found something on the long run here, because he's straight after McRubbin instantly. So on the long runs, this car tends to push quite tight into the corner. And then for some reason I can't explain, and I know loose is the aim of the game, as that rhymes exactly along with something I shouldn't mention, because then I may got copyright striked. As it looked like Buscemi and I believe that was Wanamaker maybe get into each other, and Buscemi gets into green. Caution coming out. That is a good time for the caution, and a good time to pan to Buscemi, as there was definitely some contact there, and we're going to have to take a look at that one. I'm going to pan the camera back because Buscemi's already... Yeah, so it was Wanamaker. So Buscemi makes a late dash to the inside of Wanamaker. And just, I think, locks up the brakes a little bit or something. Turns up the racetrack. Wanamaker gets, unfortunately, caught up in it, of course. Wanamaker hitting the outside wall. Back down the track. Thankfully avoids everything else. Buscemi comes down the track way too far, not allowing any room for anyone underneath, and just gets absolutely clobbered, does the 98 machine. So Jonathan Green really getting the bad end of the stick in that one, as hard racing breeds more hard racing. So under caution here, 48 laps out of 180 completed, and we are at Richmond Raceway. And there is a lot going on. As we saw every single driver in the field come down pit lane, and we are not surprised to have seen that. As Josh Robinson is currently listed as the leader of the race. So, Ogle, as something has happened to Ogle as he's very slow on the high side there. Get that Ford fired back up the right way. As there's something definitely going on with that Ford machine. Well, a potential issue for Tom Ogle, so this is definitely something that we did not expect to see out of the 11 machine at the moment, as he is falling quite a ways down the standings. And the camera back up to Robinson now. So Robinson is going to be your leader thanks to that potential penalty or something going on with Tom Ogle. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Dan Hill and Robinson are going to be side by side though, as Robinson has chosen the bottom lane to start this restart. Wayne MacArthur and Lloyd. And there's a spin under caution. Well, we've seen it all now, as I believe that was Rick Netz in the 35 machine that had a bit of a spin as we were about to come to green, taking a tow and getting out of the way. So Robinson and Hill, MacArthur and Moore, your second row. Michael Watts and Greg McDaniel in your third row as we get ready to go under green. And here we go. So Robinson taking the field by storm at the moment, easily out front from MacArthur, who has found himself battling Hill for the second place spot and takes it away from him. Watts and Moore going at it. Watts trying to recover and find something else to do to retain his position up further, as he lost a few at the start of the race. Rice is going to follow him straight through underneath Moore. And Moore's going to find himself dropping all the way back to the 6th position. Just setting the fastest lap at the moment. Dwayne MacArthur in the 2nd place spot. Now he is definitely going to have something to show Josh Robinson here in the next couple of laps, as he's just clicked off a 22.65, which is a full 10th faster than our previous lap record. So that is showing intense pace straight off the bat and trying to charge into contention with Josh Robinson for the lead. And still sitting right behind the back bumper of Robinson, maybe trying to learn exactly where Robinson is a slight bit weaker and trying to pounce on that aspect of Robinson's game. He's going to have to look pretty low to the inside. It's a very difficult track to pass if you're not already abreast with another driver. As you've really got to find yourself sending it in deep. And all of a sudden, that driver has to allow for the fact that you are there. They see that in their rear view, because otherwise it's going to end in disaster. The these two continue to battle it out. We're going to cycle on back slightly to the 16th place, as this looks very close indeed, with Jones, Wanamaker, and Lindsay. Jones caught in the middle of those two, as Wanamaker just ahead gets a little bit of a slower exit, and Eddie Jones tries to take advantage. Not quite able to do it though, as Wanamaker doing a great job on that high side, gets a little bit loose, almost comes down into Eddie Jones, thankfully avoiding that catastrophe. And Lindsay is going to take full advantage of that one to get side by side, and Wanamaker gets loose again into the side of Lindsay. Hopefully nothing bad or untoward has happened to the right-hand side of Lindsay's machine, as Wanamaker continues to struggle around the track. Mike Lynch is going to take full advantage of that once again, and Wanamaker has got to find some grip on the rear of that machine, as he is looking on the absolute edge at the moment. Jose and Glass side by side just behind. This is all happening around the 18th spot, which is where Wanamaker currently sits. Ogle finding his way through, trying to get his way into the mix as well after an interesting event happening before the caution came out. So he's looking to make his way through the grid once again, as he makes the move on Chaussee just ahead. Taco Bell machine has to give way to the 11, as the 11 has got some serious pace here tonight. Ogle right behind Wanamaker. This will be interesting to see what the air does on the back, and you can see Wanamaker just gets really loose as the air gets pushed up from the front of Thomas Ogle's machine and into the back of the bumper of Alan Wanamaker. So Wanamaker is really struggling as he pushes high, and he's going to be fighting a very struggling race car as they go three wide. Chaussee and Glass, well, they were thinking about it. Glass backs off as Chaussee makes that move on that high side. We're completely focused on Alan Wanamaker at the moment, because his machine is struggling so much more than anyone else's. As you can see, once again, he just absolutely plows into the mid-line during the corner. Really struggling, that 74 machine is, as Chaussee is still on the high side. And Glass is going to try and do something as well around here. Chaussee leaving plenty of room. He's seen how loose Wanamaker is and doesn't want any part of it, as Wanamaker gets a push from Ryan Glass and absolutely gets sent into the corner. Able to make it stick though, very surprisingly. And here, oh, as I say that, he gets a little bit loose, come down the track, has to file back in line. Is given room by Follenbaum, but not enough, and gets into the side of Follenbaum. Follenbaum gets back on track and collects Bruce Pearson, I believe that was. And it is just a mess down here in the back. Gonna follow along with Follenbaum, and that one unfolded very quickly. As you can see, Wanamaker, after that, just, lock up the brakes as hard as possible. Not able to slow the 74 machine down. And Fellenbaum just gets sent a little bit around. Could have held it, but Wanamaker hits him a second time. And you cannot go three wide or two wide underneath. Victor Lane just barely avoiding that one. So close is Victor Lane to hitting both cars, as the 22 also goes around. Somehow Pearson did not get caught up in traffic. Great job from Greg Hammond as well, avoiding that incident. I want to see who was the tired machine. Seems like a very familiar paint job. But they were caught in the sandwich there, the 32 was, and somehow weren't affected too much. That was the 32 tied backed machine of, I'm trying to name here. That is definitely it's John Hastings. I have no idea how he managed to be sandwiched between two machines and, I mean, got a little bit loose, you could see there, but was able to hang on to it. Absolutely amazing. There's a sponsor. Really, I mean, that's the way you want the sponsor to be ran. Shows how tough it is. Between two cars spinning out, just goes straight on by. As we also got a report that Rick Nitz crashed. Without trying to do him dirty, we'll have a look and see what that one was come out for. Nitz was going on the high side, potentially just got on the brakes. Yeah, just got on the brakes very, very hard not to get into Pearson on the high side. And allowing Pearson to get back in line before starting again. So sometimes when you hit the brakes and you come to a relatively complete stop, our timing software registers that as a crash. Thankfully, there was not one though. So, once again, we will be under caution here. And once again, unsurprisingly, most of the field has come down to collect some tyres. Because fall off is huge here. Troy Baker, the only car so far, I believe, on the lead lap that has not come down to grab any tyres. Potentially just wants to lead a lap here. If he can, unless he's the lucky dog. But I think he may have actually jumped to the lead. We're showing Robinson is in the lead at the moment, though. Not sure how accurate he will be, as he makes his way a lap around, so he would definitely go around. I should trust my timing software a little bit more, even though it has its moments for sure. As Robinson and MacArthur are going to be side by side on the front row. Robinson with the choice of lane on that low side. Michael Watts trying to take advantage, or definitely will be trying to take advantage off the start, with Clint Rice alongside him, and Dan Hill and Greg McDaniel in the third row. As we get ready to launch a mountain of horsepower once again. And we go back to green here at Richmond. More wide, it looked like for a second there, a little bit further back. That looked absolutely amazing, as I believe Brian Lynch and Wayne Hufford were thinking about doing so. I believe they did do so for a little bit, as that looked pretty incredible around the 12th place position. As Brian Lindsay, just a little bit further back, you can see, made a move to the inside. Ogle trying desperately to get his nose in there between Essery and Jones. Jones on the high side, so Essery is next to Ogle right now. Lynch just ahead. Lynch has to check up just a tad, as Kenneth Schultz also checked up just ahead. Bellenbaum coming into the chat saying that's not good. It certainly wasn't, as it's unfortunate to see that you had enough time to talk to us. Hopefully you're still out on track at the moment. Oh, sorry, excuse me, that is Jason Fellenbaum, and Bob is definitely out on track. So I guarantee different people. And yeah, Fellenbaum unfortunately getting caught up in an incident as well. But Ogle still trying to make his way through on the high side around Kenneth Schultz. That's going to be a tough ask because the low side has definitely been the preferred line so far. But we do know that Ogle has the speed, if anyone, to do it. Ogle makes that one work. Brian Lynch is really trying to work out how Ogle, I think, was able to get around on the high side. Thinking about doing something himself around the back of Schultz now, but not quite close enough to actually make a move. As we focus further up the field, because Al Turner looking to go underneath the low side of Greg McDaniel, and they touch each other, and I believe that was actually Moore going underneath Al Turner there. Moore gets back up into the racing line almost. That could have been very dangerous. Thankfully, no one gets involved. And falling a long way down the standings, all the way down into the 19th position right now. But thankfully not getting any more issues on track and keeping the race turning in the green direction. So that was definitely a moment between those two drivers. The textbook, oh, my tires are still hot after a spin, as Lloyd Moore really almost lost the rear end once again. Gonna be struggling a little bit with that machine for the next few laps as those tires come back down to temp, to which they are actually stable. As there's quite a few drivers struggling a lot as Brian Lynch tries to go on the low side against Kenneth Schultz now. Trying to follow what he saw Ogle did before, but getting a little bit loose himself, as Essery now finds himself on the high side against Lynch. So Essery takes that 13th spot away. The Blinford machine taking over that spot. The Schultz in the backed machine is going to fall down the standings just that one position to the 14th place spot. You can see Bates very, very low down the track. Missed exactly what happened there, but probably the same kind of troubles that we've seen so far with so many drivers just getting so loose. Bates falling into the clutches of Kenneth Schultz now, and we will see if Schultz has anything for him, as Bates is continuing to stay in that 11th place spot. Ogle has worked his way into the top 10, so all I can say to the top 10 is watch your rear view mirrors every now and then, because here comes Ogle, as he's still got a little bit of a gap though that he has to work up to get himself further up the standings. So far, your biggest move of the race, I have to be pretty certain on this, and I am, that Eddie Jones is currently sitting in the 9th position, going to be 10th after this potential move, a big dive from Tom Ogle, and yes, falls to 10th as Ogle takes that spot away, but still up 22 positions for Eddie Jones at the moment. So an absolutely phenomenal drive from where he started out further back in the field. Pan the camera back to Brian Lynch, because he looks like he's going to make a dive on Schultz and does so. Can the Hooters machine actually make that one stick? Schultz is very strong on that high side though. And no, that run was just absolutely mitigated by the pure speed of the Ford in front. And we heard last week that the Fords have been showing absolute dominant pace over the course of the last few weeks, so definitely something in the garage, in the shop way back, that is making those power plants absolutely fly here, as it looks like Wayne Hufford and Wayne Hufford and Eddie Jones, reading that one wrong slightly, As Hufford tried something on Jones, not able to do so, will have to find his way back in line. So Hufford telling us after the race last week that yes, it definitely is Newcastle United on the side of that machine. See that there as well. And I believe he told us he was actually born in the UK and then came with his parents into Canada when he was a young lad. So I believe that's the case. I may be slightly wrong there. I may be slightly wrong as we get joined by Mason Heimbaugh, my friend and colleague, in the spectator area as well, letting us know how he is doing. So great to see him there. Also, it looks like Fellenbaum is still a couple of laps behind, which is why he's letting these leaders go past. But as I was saying about Wayne Hufford, I am not entirely certain. I should probably find that out pretty quickly. As Hufford was definitely telling us that he is either from or his parents are from UK. And that is what brought that one about. I'm going to have to get that one dialed in for you. Later on, for next broadcast, I will learn a bit more about some of these drivers. I guarantee it, I promise. But I know that they're all here and they all have fun week in and week out as Lloyd Moore and Mike Lynch go side by side. Lynch gets into the wall just a tad, so that's going to slow him down a little bit for Brian Glass to try and make his way on the low side. Oh, Brian Glass also has a bit of a bobble, so a lot of these drivers, even though we've had 2 cautions, we're really seeing the tyre wear start to make a big name for itself. Dave Nestor slows right down. I'm not sure if you could hear that as well as I could in my headset, but the speed was way down into the corner from what we would see typically, and that is purely to do with keeping that car pointed in the right direction. As Chris Bates has a whole heap of company with Kenneth Schultz and Brian Lynch behind, as well as Brian McRubbin. So Hooters and Duff Beer, what goes better together? That is a good question, and I can't think of an answer, as I am pretty sure. Yeah, I can say that on broadcast. As that is a fantastic pairing as the 2 Bryans go around, and there's a 3-wide action just for a little bit as the 93 machine of Patrick Martindale goes up high, and there's a little bit of contact with Chris Bates and Kenneth Schultz as they run into each other just a tad, as Schultz makes his way around Bates now. McRubbin tries to come in as well. And yes, he's definitely going to take that spot away. So Bates falling all the way back, and Bates comes down the track and into Brian Lynch, who was there. Lynch has to check up. Everyone checks up. So Lindsay and Glass, I cannot tip my hat to them any more than what I have just done in the booth, because the fact that they did not get into an accident is absolutely astounding. Both of them jumping on the brakes as quick as they could to avoid any sort of issue and doing a fantastic job at that. So shout out to both Brian Glass and Brian Lindsay. All the Bryans here doing a fantastic job. All the Bryans right next to each other. Look, there's Brian Lynch just there. All three of them under a blanket almost. As we can see further up the field, look at this. McDaniel, our last week winner, and Clint Rice. And they have a Tom Ogle who's working his way through the field ever so slowly up into the 7th place at the moment. This battle is developing as Tom Ogle going to make that dive down the inside. Given plenty of room from Rice. And now McDaniel has to deal with an Ogle behind. At number 1 jockey machine with red, white and blue, about as vivid as you could imagine. It's going to be overtaken now by Tom Ogle. And Ogle making that pass work, and Rice gets so close to the back of McDaniel on exit there. That looked almost terrifying, as Rice has a whole lot of pace right now and is showing it as he gets a little, I think that was a little bit loose, but it looked fairly controlled from where I was sitting. All at the same time as that Exxon backed machine is doing a phenomenal job so far. Speaking of phenomenal jobs, Eric Essery, look at him go. Up into the top 10, currently sitting in the 9th position. Not sure exactly where he came from, but he's been making his way up slowly but surely as well. Currently 21 spots up, the second biggest mover on track behind Eddie Jones, who is just behind Eric Essery. I say just, but is behind by about 2 seconds of difference. So Essery just clicking off laps and doing a great job of it. As we cycle it on back to Bruce Pearson. After that last incident is right on the back bumper of Mark Fish and doing a great job. As I believe Bruce Pearson may be the only green car, the only lime green, that's for sure, car on track at the moment. Oh, as a look at that, that looked very interesting just behind. And I know exactly who that was. That was a Mr. Dave Nestor. Was struggling with the rear end of that machine. And that has been the aim of the game so far, has just been to keep the car underneath you. As Al Turner and Clint Rice now. Al Turner caught up to Rice, made the pass. Rice is fighting back. Realize I've been saying Rice this whole time, may even be Reese. That's probably, I think I've had this discussion in the booth before. Have to get that one dialed in as well. There's a few things that I want to get dialed in for a lot of these drivers heading into future events, as I feel like I'm doing them a little bit, I feel like I'm doing an alright job, but not quite amazingness that I think they deserve. But that is on me, definitely not your concern. But thank you for tuning in to watching regardless, as Al Turner has made that pass and stuck it in front of Clint Rice now, as we're going to take a little bit further back of a look, because Brian McRubbin has caught to the back end of Eddie Jones. And Jones, I believe, has pushed his car just a little bit too hard, trying to make his way through the pack as quick as possible. And this long green flag run is really working its way into McRubbin's heart, as McRubbin makes that pass. He has found something in the Duff Beer machine, and it is working wonders right now, as he drifts a little bit wide. So Moore also tries to follow through, Lloyd Moore underneath Eddie Jones as well. So Jones falling back just a little bit. Jeremy Mayo saying that Brian Lynch had a little bit of a handful at the Hooters backed machine. And yes, absolutely. We've seen that almost out of every single car so far tonight, as I may have been very late to the party on that one, as YouTube side of things, for me personally, does not seem to refresh quite that quickly. So may have to see if I can figure something out there as well. But anyway, anyhow, Kenneth Schultz doing a great job, consistently doing a great job, as I keep on repeating that because he is currently in the 12th place position. And every time I pan back, it seems like Kenneth Schultz is involved in a battle, and a battle that he does relatively well at, as he's taken over the position from Eddie Jones and into the 12th place spot right now. And let it be known that none of these drivers are slouches. These drivers definitely are on the ragged edge all of the time. As it looks like Robinson up front having to deal with quite a bit of traffic. He puts Dave Nestor down there, but it was showing us that Dwayne MacArthur was pretty much on the back bumper of Robinson. And of course, as soon as we pan back to see if there is a battle up in the lead, we're getting word that MacArthur is actually 4 seconds down the track, as we have this long green flag run going. Now, all these drivers pitted at lap 67 or so. We have 120 laps of fuel, so that is actually right on the cusp of a fuel run if they can make it all the way to the end. Well, actually, they should be able to. No, it will be right on the cusp. They may be able to make it, but they won't have too much fuel left at the end if they do. That is obviously provided we do not have another caution to spice things up, as Buscemi now is just in front of your race leader. Lap down cars being told to stay high. And I think Robinson at the moment is probably just content taking his time, not pushing the issue too much going through traffic, as he certainly doesn't want to give up that 4-second gap that he has built to the lead, as Dwayne MacArthur is going to come in under green flag pit stops. So he is coming in. He's going to be the first car down pit road under green flag conditions. So that is, I believe, actually the second car, excuse me, as Greg McDaniel has already made his way down. Tyre wear being the main factor why drivers are coming in right now, as Michael Watts also joins them. Oh, and that was very, very close. Patrick Martindale almost getting into the side of the leader. That was absolutely terrifying, as it looked like that was the difference in new versus old tyres potentially. As yes, Martindale does have newer tyres coming in lap 100, as opposed to Josh Robinson's 67. Now, it'll be interesting because Robinson has a very long run pace car and always has done. But the real interesting thing about that is purely based on the fact that that 23 machine, he's going to have to come down to pit road at some point. Or will he just stay out the entire time? I mean, if he can work out how to make the tyres last an entire fuel run, I have no idea how, as Lloyd Moore comes down pit road now from the 3rd place spot. Eddie Jones also coming down. Yeah, Josh Robinson, one of those drivers that It's always an interesting one to see what his strategy calls are, because he has such a long run car as Eric Essery comes down pit road. However, with the new tyres, a lot of these drivers are going to be going and blitzing it, as it looked almost like Robinson was thinking about coming down, but missed it. As Lindsay, Lynch, McRubbin all come down pit road. Robinson, is he going to do it this time? Yes, he does. So Robinson is going to come down pit road. That is going to hand the lead over to Kenneth Schultz, unless Schultz decides to pit, but Schultz is staying out. Schultz sounding like he may try and come down to pit road this time by. No, we've been bamboozled up here in the booth as he continues to drive around the track. So Robinson has come out actually behind Tom Ogle now, as well as Michael Watts and Dwayne MacArthur, as he pit roughly 6 laps later than the other drivers. So you can actually see, oh, Patrick Martindale has crashed and we have a caution. That came out all of a sudden, as that is really going to spice things up. Saw in the timing software that Martindale had an incident. 93 Napa backed machine. Looks like a little bit too much trust in those newer tires, and just loops it around back end. Tries to correct it. He's going to loop it again from the look of it. And try and lock it down. Nope, not going to be able to avoid the outside wall. Ooh, a lot of bouncing out of that 93 machine. Must have hit that with some sort of impact, as thankfully the field comes away with it. So, grab the gyrocam of that one, because I want to almost right on board and take a feel of how that was. So excuse me as we were looking at the camera. Yeah, just let you can hear how loose he is trying to get on the brakes. Interesting how much that thing bounced around. That is a scary sight to see, all the cars going around left and right from the machine to avoid. So our third caution of the night, and want to talk about spicing things up with pit strategy. That's exactly what's just happened. Lloyd Moore has come down pit road. Got some varying, speaking of pit strategy, we've got very varying pit strategy right now. Josh Robinson staying out as is expected, as he only just came out of pit road about 2 laps prior to this caution. Eric Essery staying out, currently shown as the 2nd place driver. So all coming down pit road was going to be Tom Ogle, Wayne MacArthur, Michael Watts, Dan Hill, Greg McDaniel, all came down once again. So the top 3, Chris Bates, we're showing Chris Bates has come down in lap 132, same as everyone else under caution. Same as Kenneth Schultz. I wonder, at this timing sheet, no, they didn't take 2 tyres. It just looks like they had phenomenal pit stops. Shout out to Chris Bates, Kevin Schultz, and Brian Glass's pit crews, as they have absolutely stepped up the game. And worked their way to stay in front of Ogle, MacArthur, Watts, Hill, and McDaniel, as we were saying earlier. So lining up, getting ready to go to green once again. Robinson and Essery now are going to be your first and second place positions. Bates and Rice are going to be behind them in the second row. Glass and Schultz are going to be in your third row. And Ogle and MacArthur looking to make their way through in the fourth row as we go back under green again. Less than 50 laps to go as Josh Robinson takes an early lead. Rice follows through underneath Eric Essery, who had a bit of a slow start to this one. As Essery files in underneath, it looks single file for the moment as we pan back to Kenneth Schultz, who's trying to get underneath Brian Glass. Both MacArthur and Ogle are right there waiting in the wings. MacArthur, I think, had a little bit of a decision to make as he was wondering if he should go 3 wide with Schultz and Glass. Decided against it as Ogle files back behind Glass. MacArthur's not going to be happy to see Lynch come down right in front of him. But that is going to be well within his right to do that, as Schultz definitely had the room. And MacArthur once again has to get on the brakes a lot harder than he would want to, as Ogle makes his way underneath Glass, now just behind. MacArthur's going to say that he's had enough and really send it as deep as possible underneath Schultz now. That's going to hurt his exit though, as Schultz has the run. And will Schultz be able to hold on to this 5th place position? You can see, just gets on the brakes a little bit earlier, Kenneth Schultz does. Trying to keep that momentum on the high side though, as Ogle doesn't know who's going to be leading this one, as they continue to be side by side, literally door to door, as MacArthur may just have a slight bit more of an advantage, but Schultz is able to send it around the outside, and Schultz is going to take that spot away for the briefest of moments as they continue side by side. This battle just won't quit as MacArthur and Schultz continue. Have this epic battle. Oh, on the low side there, thankfully on the apron, not getting involved in any sort of incident, as MacArthur looks to have maybe finally taken this position away, but the battle just keeps on continuing. And this is allowing the likes of Robinson, Rice, Essery and Bates just in front to really have a nice clean go of it. As Bates is actually falling down, I believe, slightly into their clutches right now. Well, MacArthur has a bobble with his internet connection. And that is going to hurt him big time, as it doesn't look like he's appearing back out on track any moment. He is gone. He's done. That is absolute heartbreak, as it looks like he's just almost been ejected from the session. So MacArthur, one of the drivers we had who had such high hopes for, he was looking so competitive. He's just been absolutely sent to the Shadow Realm. And that is about as unfortunate as I've ever seen it. And I once again, I know there is a bunch of weather events happening around America at the moment. Although he is in Canada, Potentially power went out or something of that nature. About as fortunate as you can think it could have been. And that is absolute heartbreak. But Ogle now is going to make his way underneath Bates and pass him for the 4th place position. As Schultz is going to stick his nose in there as well, underneath Bates. And Schultz takes that spot away. Michael Watts also following through. Dan Hill as well. Just purely showing once again on some of the shorter tracks on the circuit, if you get stuck in that high line and they just keep on coming, the cars, you just cannot find a gap and you're stuck out there, as Bates almost has a little bit faster of a run out of Hill though. No, as Hill comes right back up side by side, and he's going to take that spot away. Will Bates be able to check down before Turner gets there? No, Turner's definitely there. Al Turner is going to now be in the battle with Bates. So Bates finding himself stuck up there, as it looks like Rice is making a move on Essery, and all of a sudden here comes Ogle. Rice stuck up high. So Rice has lost 2 spots as he goes from 2nd to 4th. Essery goes into 2nd and Ogle follows him through. Robinson making a meal out of this one, as he is already 0.8 of a second ahead of the rest of the field right now. Oh, and it looks like that was Dan Hill or Michael Watts had a little bit of a bobble there, just further behind at the back of shot. Looking very, very interesting indeed, as Lynch looks to the inside of Hufford, decides against it for the 16th position. All the way back, as we do have just in front of McRubbin, that is, oh, I believe that's going to be Victor Lane. So lap down machines. Not a current barrel. I thought it might have been a battle out on track. Not quite so. As all of a sudden we do have MacArthur once again. So MacArthur's back and hasn't fallen down a lap. So not sure exactly what happened there. It did look like a bobble for sure. Some sort of internet connection, as he just disappeared and then reappeared. However, nowhere near up the racetrack as he was earlier. So not sure what's happened there, but he found himself sitting in the 12th position right now. So that's about as mysterious as I can think of it. There's a battle between Al Turner and Kenneth Schultz is underway for the 7th place spot. Turner has taken that spot away. Schultz follows in tow. And Bates getting a little bit wide. It looks like McDaniel's going to take advantage. Sends the nose in. Bates is definitely going to hold on to that one though. Bates getting a little bit loose on exit as well. So Rick coming in, thanking Team Goon Squad. Thanking me specifically as well, so I very much appreciate that. That's very much appreciated. Thanking the sponsor Kimball Cup Series as well. We would also like to thank the Kimball Cup Series for supporting the Old Bastards Racing League. I believe it was Greg McDaniel, if I'm not mistaken, who brought them on board for this season, so thank for them to being the title sponsor of the entire season for this league. As Greg McDaniel currently sits in the 12th place position. And it looks like Rice is going to be falling back because Kenneth Schultz is on a mission. And Schultz makes his way up. Bates following through as well, trying to get underneath Rice, and does so. Is Rice going to fall back down to McDaniel as well? It looks like it. He's going to have to tuck into the inside line as quick as possible, though, as here comes Glass and listens to me up in the booth perfectly. So right in front of Glass, Rice is going to stick up into the top 10. So he's going to be able to hang on there. But less than 20 laps to go. It is winding down, but the action and intensity is winding up for sure. As you can see, Brian Glass has I was going to say a Brian Lindsay just behind, but that doesn't look like that's for position. No, as Lindsay's actually a lap down right now. Brian Glass does have a Clint Reist. So it looks like that caution coming out really made a huge impact on a lot of these drivers. And currently the best performer so far, and the one who probably didn't want it to see it come out because of the huge lead, but also doesn't mind that it did because it didn't come out and disadvantage him, is Josh Robinson. Is still sitting in the top spot, a full second and a half or so in front of Eric Essery, who has a Tom Ogle not too far behind as we pan the camera to look at that battle. See Eric Essery there, as well as Tom Ogle, just trying to get a bit more of a run out of the corner to try and catch up to Essery as quickly as possible. Pan the camera back to the closest battle on track at the moment, and that's going to involve Chris Bates, Greg McDaniel, and Kenneth Schultz just in front of those two, as they are all 0.2 of a second away from each other. You can see just how nose to tail it looks as Bates, not sure what that was, almost looked like he tried to get underneath Schultz and then had a little bit of a bobble on the rear, and McDaniel almost looked like was thinking about doing something with that, but didn't, and that was just a whole bunch of craziness. 97, the 81, and the 1 are in a nice tight line. Clint Reist not too far behind either, looking on. So for references, if anyone else is wondering, your top Ford is sitting with Josh Robinson, Eric Essery in your Chevrolet. Current best Chevy out on track is sitting in the second position, and Toyota with heartbreak so far, as by comparison, Wayne MacArthur is your top Toyota, currently sitting in the 12th place spot. So one thing we haven't talked about tonight at all, as we see Chris Bates falling behind Greg McDaniel as that move was made. One thing we haven't talked about is the 3-digit number driver of Mike Lynch, who has shown up pretty much every single race since appearing and has done a fantastic job so far of keeping the John Deere machine out of harm's way and just clicking off laps, trying to learn some stuff. from a lot of these veterans around him. And doing a great job of it, as it looks like McDaniel is making the move on Schultz. At the risk of making myself laugh, McDaniel and Schultz were jockeying for position. As we keep the camera panned on McDaniel so you can see exactly why that pun was so funny in my brain. As McDaniel and Schultz have worked that one out, because McDaniel has taken that 7th place position. All drivers in the top spots seem to be in a relatively nice sort of position. Pretty calm and collected right now. Just battle on track, Dwayne MacArthur and Ryan Glass. About 2/10 separating these two drivers. As Glass goes very, very high. MacArthur's going to take that spot with relative ease, moving his way up into 11th spot with 6 laps to go. Moore follows him through as well. That looks like Pearson is also going to stick his nose in there. However, Pearson a lap down as well. So with 5 laps to go, just to give you a little bit of an idea on the... Okay, where did that come from? As Rice rejoins the track. Rice and Schultz, I believe, got together, almost taking out MacArthur as well. Gonna have to queue that one up really quick. I understand we're right near the end of the race, but what happened here? As Bates was also there. Oh, getting into the wall goes Schultz, comes down into Rice, and unbelievably, Rice able to hang on to that and not get into the inside wall. So amazing driving from him. Also keeping that position still from MacArthur. So absolutely astounding, as we've only got 3 laps to go. This is coming down to the wire for some of these drivers in the top 10, namely Schultz and Rice, getting very, very close together indeed. As Essery is closing the gap to Robinson now. Mind you, it's not by much, as Robinson still leads by quite a significant margin. And I'm not sure it's going to be able to help out as much as he quite wants as we continue looking at this battle, as it is the closest on track right now. Few laps to go. Trying to give you an idea of the difference of how far away. So Clint Rice and Kenneth Schultz are in 10th position. You can see just on the backstretch there. And if we pan the camera to Robinson, look, he's almost a full lap ahead of the top 10 as he comes down the backstretch now. Just to give you an idea of how dominant Josh Robinson's performance has been tonight. And he is going to take home the checkered flag here. 180 laps at Richmond Raceway. Josh Robinson, Eric Essery, and Tom Ogle rounding out the top 3. Absolutely amazing racing here tonight. And a very dominant performance from a Mr. Josh Robinson. The results here for you tonight, and we'll do our typical slow pan so you can see where your favorite driver has finished as we roll through the field. But at the moment, I can tell you that Josh Robinson has taken home the win. Eric Essery, Tom Ogle in your top 3, Michael Watts, Dan Hill in your top 5, Al Turner, Greg McDaniel, Chris Bates, Kenneth Schultz, and Clint Rice are going to be your top 10 here tonight, as we cycle the field through and enjoy a bit of Josh Robinson burnoutness. So we wait for the drivers to make their way into the waiting room. Ricknett's also coming in right at the end of the race, letting us know that he had network challenges. So unfortunate for him, and a lot of these drivers seem to have a little bit of struggle with the network today. We're going to see Josh Robinson is the only one we're waiting for in the booth, as we are joined by Eric Essery and Tom Ogle, both ready for their interviews. Tom Ogle going to be the first one that we are going to be joined by. Tom Ogle, welcome to the booth. It is fantastic to see you once again, and I'm excited to talk to you. How was that race from your perspective?
It was an adventure. I sped in the pits on that first pit stop under caution. So, and when you have a 40 car field and you have to start 40th, it's a chore.
Well,
I was
it's
out front relaxing, and then it wasn't so relaxing.
well, I can tell you it didn't look relaxing at all as you were working your way through the field, but you did a phenomenal job. How was it driving yourself through the field? I have to ask because I mean that was incredible watching.
Just you kind of got to pick your spot, and then I like this track. This is one of my favorite tracks. I'm pretty good here. So I just kind of picked my spots and tried to be patient. It happened early, so I knew like it wasn't a disaster, you know. And I kind of was hoping for a caution once I say get 10 guys, and everybody races pretty clean, so it was a chore, but not bad.
Well, I tell you, Tom. I mean, I always love talking to you. Your enthusiasm is probably through the roof, and I got to ask you. I don't think I mentioned it during the broadcast, but I've got to mention it now because it was amazing. Before the before we actually went racing, do you remember what you said? Something about a hummingbird, I believe it was.
Yes, a hummingbird, the metabolism of a hummingbird.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about drivers wanting to grab their meat and having to eat a certain amount,
Jeez.
and what was it, 250 pounds of food a day if we've got the metabolism.
258 pounds of food a day if you got a hummingbird's metabolism.
I tell you, that is an amazing fact, and you're the kind of guy that I I don't know. It's just fun. I I would love to have you in my friendship group, and I'm so happy that I get to call the races with you in it.
Well, good. I'm glad. Listen, this is fun. It's a great group of guys in this league, and if you're not having fun at something like this, you need to pick a different hobby.
Absolutely
You
well
know.
spoken and entirely true, Tom. Before I let you go, anyone you'd like to shout out here tonight for this third place that's probably deserving of a win here tonight, but a third, I'm definitely going to take that after that penalty.
Josh would have probably been better than me on long run, but the dirty air affected him. But I want to thank Josh and Brian Lynch and Dan Hill and all the guys. We kind of bounce off of each other ideas. All the guys that put the league on. Dwayne puts in a ton of work. The admins put in a ton of work. It's a lot of work. Thank you guys for broadcasting it. Just thanks to guys that run the league.
All right, sounds good, Tom. It's been an absolute pleasure having you
Yes,
Ruth.
you too. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Tom Ogle, and always a very exciting person to talk to. I always absolutely love talking to him. But here's someone I haven't really talked much to. Eric Essery bringing it home in the second position. Eric, how are you doing, and how was that run from your perspective?
Yeah, doing good. Yeah, that was fun. It was just a few cautions, wasn't bad. The kind of normal short track, you're going to expect those. But um, yeah, for me, I just needed long runs. And there, before that last caution, it was looking good as far as just being able to pick them off from long tire run. But had a kind of a decently long one there on the end, but just not enough to catch Josh. He's like that new AI technology when I race with him. So he's pretty much spot on, knows exactly how hard to run for how many laps are left, and you don't just go up there and pass him. without some help.
Talk to us a bit more about that if you can expand on that anymore, because Josh Robinson seemed to have, and we've seen him have long run pace several times before, and you as well. But there was something about this track that really seemed in your wheelhouse tonight.
Yeah, it's turn one, especially. It's very inviting to dive into that corner and overdrive it, and you just kind of got to have some discipline of backing off low early and kind of letting it roll early. Which with this car, that's not really how you expect to drive them. Kind of like the old car you would, but this one it's different. But you kind of drove this car like you would the old one at this track. So, and I've always liked running here with long runs, long green flag runs, and with this group, you definitely get those most of the time because they're a good bunch of racers.
Well, that is indeed the case. Now, tell us as a final sort of question, tell us what kind of, I guess I'm trying to ask, how did you keep that car underneath you? Because we saw so many cars tonight get loose at various points, especially on corner exit, and few of them drifted up into the mid lane on corner entry, but you didn't seem to have any of those problems.
Well, I'm glad he didn't have a camera toward the back early on because I about wiped out
Oh,
once, and some guys checked up behind me. I think they got some damage just from avoiding what I was about to do. But yeah, it's just it goes into that. If you dive into the corners too hard, you're just going to burn the right front, and then you can't hold it to the bottom. So you just got to find that balance. And Josh was doing that perfectly. I was just talking to him, and he had that same mentality. Just keep it, even though it seems slow, feels slow, and maybe it is a little slower for 10 laps. It comes around and evens out, and then if you can go 25 or more, you start to pick up that ground you lost pretty quick.
absolutely. All right. Well, it's been great talking to you, Eric. Anyone you'd like to shout out here for tonight's second place performance?
Oh yeah, just anybody that's watching, you guys do a real good job putting that on. You go through the field, always watch it afterward. It's always done very well. So you guys and the league and my family, anybody that's watching, that I send the link to, and just look forward to the next one.
All right, great to hear from you, Eric. Hopefully, you can get yourself a win up here in the booth in pretty short order, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, sir. Hopefully soon. Thanks.
All right, that was Eric Essery bringing it home in the second place position. But bringing it home in first, let's see the man that likes to have an interesting sounding mic. Here we go, Josh Robinson. Have you got a copy?
Got a copy tonight. We got everything fixed.
Oh, fantastic. So, what was the issue in the end?
In the end, actually, props to tech support from MacArthur because he randomly told me one day that loading in through the displayed mode OpenXR, if I closed down my VR afterwards, it would do exactly what it was doing. So I switched that up, and here we are.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I tell you what, I have to ask you right as you bring that up then. How is VR? I've never used VR in any sense of the word, and I'm sure there are some people watching at home that have no idea how it works or how it feels. I mean, is it constant pressure on your eyes, or how does that sort of work?
I was skeptical at first and really nervous that it was just going to give me a constant headache. But I think being seated the whole time, it hasn't. Fortunately, it's it's pretty amazing. It is the single best upgrade that I have done for iRacing. So anybody out there listening, if you're looking for to add some realism, to add some to help you run because you can look through the turns a little bit better, VR is a pretty cheap avenue to go through to to help you out. I think it's even depending on what setup you're running, it could be cheaper than running triples.
Well, I mean, that's about. I mean, you've pretty much sold me on that, and I think you've sold a couple other people just by saying that as well. That's about as great an insight as I've. That's better insight than I've heard from marketing. Is what
it, and crazy thing, I've running some real cars and then running in here. It is going to sound weird, but you can kind of feel the car.
interesting. So, what kind of real cars do you run?
Tom and I ran some dirt track. Oh gosh, it's been close to 15, 20 years ago now.
You ever thought about getting back into it?
I like being able to hit reset.
All right, well, sounds good, Josh. One last question I have for you is, I mean, you had a very, very dominating car on the long run. There's no question about that. And according to Eric Essery, your fellow competitor here in the booth, was in second place. He said that you were about perfect and he couldn't catch up to you. Now, I got to ask you, on those restarts, I mean, it just seemed like you had a short run car as well as a long run car. I mean, once you had what, 2 laps under your belt, you just left the field. What was going on?
I'll chalk that up to some race experience here in some past races. Both Tom and Eddie have kind of taken advantage of that short run speed. So I knew if there was one key thing that I needed to get done here, it was get a little bit better on the short run. So I practiced that a little bit during our hour of warm up, and it made sure that if we had some restarts, because it's a short track, you're going to have some restarts, that I wasn't going to get caught with my pants down.
All right. Well spoken, and it's great to hear from you, Josh. Before I let you go, who would you like to thank for this win once again? I believe it's your third win right now of the season, so you must be very happy at the moment.
Yeah, it's very happy with how the start of the season has gone. I'd like to thank the league and Dwayne and all the other race events for putting it on. They put some work in to make sure that all have a good league to come into. 4 nights a week. Shout out to the league sponsor here with Kimball, which is old Greg McDaniel here, and shout out to my teammates. They're always good to bounce ideas off of. Oddly enough, Tom and I were running a little bit different tonight, but both of them were effective. And then a special thanks, and Eddie, you're going to like this one. Really like to thank Tom for getting that self-induced speeding penalty during the yellow flag pit stop.
We definitely heard about that, and that's going to be very beneficial to you up here in the booth, no doubt about that. So, um, Josh, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for joining us up here in the booth and putting on a great show as always. So it's been great talking to you, and I'm sure we'll see you here soon as well once again.
Appreciate it, Gareth. Look forward to go back and watching this.
All right, that was Josh Robinson bringing it home in the top spot. All of these drivers doing a fantastic job tonight, as they do every single week. And we are getting ready to look forward to seeing them all go to Bristol Motor Speedway. I believe we're actually running the dirt at Bristol Motor Speedway, so that is going to be interesting enough indeed. We will see if Josh Robinson is going to be able to once again prove how dominant of a machine he has underneath him at the start of this season, as he continues to work his way up in standings and in the points. Currently on top of the table at the moment. But once again, on behalf of TGS, Team Goon Squad, myself, Gareth McAllister, bring you the action and the Kimball Cup Series, the Old Bastards Racing League. Thank you very much for tuning in, supporting us in every single facet of how we do our broadcasting and everything like that. Thanks to all the drivers for turning up, putting on a great show, and I guess we will see you next week at the exact same time, at the exact same place. Get ready for it. It's going to be amazing on dirt. See you then. I'm Gareth. Bye-bye.